Hi, this is Jacek. In the first episode we talked about two things. Why the idea of a perfect loudspeaker doesn't really make sense, and how human hearing is far more selective and emotional than we usually assume. Today I'd like to take you one step further. We are going to look at something that sounds very technical at first, but it's actually very practical. The spectrum of sound. Not as numbers, not a straight line from 20 Hz to 20 kHz, but as a set of regions that each do something different to how we feel music. Because when people say things like, this sounds warm, this sounds bright, this is too thin, or this sounds open and spacious, they are really talking about different parts of the spectrum. So let's unpack that gently in plain language. The spectrum as a landscape. We often see the audible range written as a single string of digits, 20 Hz to 20 kHz, as if it were one smooth road. But in practice, our experiences of sound is more like traveling through different landscapes, deep valleys, rolling hills, busy city, clear air high above. Each part of the spectrum carries a different aspects of music: weight, warmth, clarity, attack, air, space. And the balance between those regions shapes the entire character and what we hear. Let's walk through them, not as engineers, but as listeners. At the very bottom lives the sub-bass, roughly from 20 to 40 Hz. Most of the time you don't hear it in the usual sense, you feel it. It's the distant rumble of a large organ pipe, the slow wave of a synthesizer, the weight of a cinematic explosion that seems to bend the room a little. When sub-bass is present and well controlled, music feels larger, more rooted, more physical. When it's missing, the sound can still be beautiful, but the scale shrinks. This is one of the reasons small speakers can sound charming, but rarely sound truly big. A bit higher, from roughly 40 to 120 Hz, we find the bass. This is where groove lives. Kick drum, bass guitar, double bass, tom-toms, the left hand of the piano while it digs in. This region gives music its sense of forward motion. It makes the foot tap, the head nod, the body sway. Too little energy here and music feels weak, nervous, undernourished. Too much or poorly controlled and everything becomes boomy, heavy and blurred. When people say, this system has no drive, or this system is too thick and slow, they are often reacting to what is happening in this band. Between roughly 120 and 500 Hz lives the lower mid-range. This is where music starts to feel human. The body of male vocals, the resonance of the cello and trombone, the warmth of guitars and saxophones, the sense the instruments have mass, wood, flesh and air inside them. If this region is too strong, sound turns muddy, boxy or cloudy. If it's too weak, music becomes thin, anxious. A lot of "is the system musical?" question is decided here, because this is where emotional warmth and physical substance meet each other. From about 500 Hz to around 2 kHz, we have the central mid-range. This is the real heart of music. Most of recognizable character of instruments and voices lives here. Melody, the core of speech, the part that lets us say, this is a violin, this is a clarinet, this is her voice. If the mid-range is right, you can forgive many imperfections in the extremes. If the midrange is wrong, nothing else feels right. A speaker can have deep bass and sparkling treble, but if it fails here, the music never really connects. This is also where our ear is very sensitive to coloration, from the enclosure, from the room, from the way drivers blend together. It is an unforgiving region and a magical one, when it is done well. Above that, roughly between 2 and 5 kHz, we enter what many people call the presence region. This is where sound steps forward, towards the listener. The crack of a snare drum, a bite of a trumpet, the pico on a guitar string, the consonants in a voice that let us understand words. Our hearing is extremely sensitive here, so where small changes can have a big impact. A little too much presence and music feels bright, sharp, insistent. It grabs you by the collar. A little too little and music feels polite, muted, as if it's holding back. When someone says the speaker is too shouty or the speaker is veiled, they are usually talking about this region. Above 5 kHz and up into lower teens, we find the treble. This is where we perceive shimmer, sparkle and fine texture. Cymbals, the bite of the bow on a string, the leading edge of a piano notes, the air in singer's breath right before the phrase. Good treble doesn't really draw attention to itself. It simply lets you feel that the details are there when you choose to listen for them. Harsh treble can make listening tiring. Overlay soft treble can make music sound closed in, flattened, as if someone dimmed the light. Treble is not about showing off, it's about letting small things remain intact. Finally, at the very top, somewhere between about 8 and 15 kHz, we find something more subtle. Not more treble, but something closer to atmosphere. The sense of space around instruments, the decay of a hall, the tiny reflections that tell your brain how big a room is and whether it has stone walls, wooden panels or carpets. When this region is present and clean, music feels open, unconstrained, three-dimensional. When it is missing, everything can sound as if it's happening inside a smaller box, even if you can't point to any obvious problem. This is the invisible frame around the picture. You don't need to remember the numbers. They are not the point. What matters is understanding that different parts of the spectrum carry different parts of musical experience. Weight, warmth, clarity, intimacy, attack, air and space. When you connect what you feel to where in the spectrum it lives, you suddenly get a language for describing your own preferences. Instead of saying, this is too bright, you might say, I'm sensitive to that presence region. I prefer a slightly calmer upper midrange. Instead of saying, this system has no emotion, you might realize the midrange is clean, but the lower midrange is too thin. So nothing has body. You don't have to use the words out loud, but having them in your mind gives you much more control over the kind of sound you choose to live with. In this episode, we walked through the spectrum as a kind of emotional map. In the next one, we'll take this one step further and connect these regions of sound to different kinds of music. How classical, rock, electronic music, pop, and film soundtracks stress different parts of this spectrum, and why a system that sings with one genre can struggle with another. Not to make things more complicated, but to make choices easier. Thank you for watching. See you in the next chapter, and until then, take a moment, slow down, and really listen.